11 years go by and not one arrest. Not a serial killer, not the neighborhood watch guy, the butcher, or boyfriend Stephen Cook. The case of Heidi Bernadzikowski officially goes cold. Cold, but never forgotten. At least not for Baltimore County Sergeant Alan Meyer.
Over the years, even though he wasn't assigned to the homicide unit, Al kept talking to people, re-interviewing people, looking at phone records. I mean, he just kind of stayed on it. So when he returned as a supervisor, we were just reviewing the case as a cold case to see if there was anything, you know, that we could do.
Something you could look at differently?
Right.
And there was something definitely worth another look. Heidi's fingernails.
So you had DNA early on. The results come back, and what does it say?
It's a male. It was a mixture. We figured it was some of Heidi's and some of whomever.
So with a decade's worth of advancements made in DNA technology,
We did decide to resubmit the fingernails,
And the results come in. What do they tell you?
and we got a hit.
You get this hit, and you had to be floored.
I can remember the day like it was yesterday.
And what happened?
And I'm hoping it's some guy from South Baltimore. And I get the information, and it's this guy, Alexander Bennett from Colorado. I'm thinking, Colorado? How could this be? And now we have to make sure it's the right guy. So I call out to Colorado. I said, describe him to me. And Heidi had actually described the neighborhood block watch guy as a larger, either a light-skinned black male or a dark-skinned, maybe Mediterranean, white male with black hair. And he had this tattoo on his left arm. Anyway, the clerk out in Colorado says, I don't know if he's a light-skinned black guy or a dark-skinned white guy. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
Now I know. I said, does he have a tattoo? And she said, yeah. At that point, I knew we had our guy. The question is, how do we put Alexander Bennett in Baltimore 11 years ago?
Sergeant Meyer has an idea. He searches the internal Maryland State Police database, which shows when someone has been stopped by police.
He was able to come up with a hit that gave Bennett's name and his date of birth, but nothing else, which was kind of weird. There was no indication as to why Bennett had been stopped or who stopped him.
So that put him in Maryland.
Well, it put a guy named Bennett in Maryland,
You just weren't sure if it was him or not.
and that's what the state's attorneys wanted us to find out.
So Meyer and Childs fly to Denver, Colorado to talk to Alexander Bennett. Turns out, Bennett isn't your run-of-the-mill guy. He's a trained opera singer. He attended the Denver School of the Arts and received a scholarship to the prestigious Manhattan School of Music. Detective Childs will be conducting the interview. Will Bennett sing like a canary?
What does he tell you?
He said, well, when he was in Maryland, he got abandoned by some friends. They were going to a concert, and he was kind of living on the street.
Living on the streets of Baltimore for about a month, around the time of Heidi's murder. And during that time, he was stopped by an officer while trying to walk through the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel.
You would think that if two detectives from Maryland asked you if you were in Maryland, you probably would say, no, I've never been to Maryland.
He didn't say that, though. He admitted he was in Maryland.
Yes, he did.
So you had that confirmation.
Yes. And then we took it a little further.
Like telling him exactly why they've brought him in.
This girl's fingernails were taken at the time of her death. And under their fingernails is your DNA. Now, there's no denying it. There's no getting around it.
But Bennett offers up an interesting explanation for that.
He said, well, when he was in Maryland, he was in a bus stop one day, and a girl came up just screaming at him and scratching his face for no apparent reason.
I got kind of scared because, you know, I was trying to fight back, and I think I hurt her.
Seemed like something that could be reasonable, possibly.
No.
No? Not at all?
Not to us, no.
Childs then shows Bennett photos of several women, hoping he can pick out that woman from the bus stop. Heidi's photo is included in the mix.
Normally this role is reversed. Normally you're showing a victim picture of suspects. In this case,
Correct.
You're showing the suspect a picture of possible victims.
Yes, hoping that, you know, he might say something or, you know, indicate something to us that would be helpful to us.
Bennett does.
And also, too, kind of looks like her.
He picked Heidi out of all these other girls that were in the pictures.
He could have said, I've never seen these women before.
Right.
But instead,
Well, see, in his mind, I think, in his mind, he had to give an explanation as to why his DNA was under this girl's fingernails.
Childs then lays down his cards.
For you to have been in Baltimore at the exact time this occurs, and for your DNA to be there, and for this tattoo to be on your arm, the exact location that the victim describes it as being, and actually drew it. I mean, that's just a lot of coincidences.
That's a profound thing, so, you know, that's why I'm concerned.
Well, it really should be. I'm concerned.
Am I being, like, charged with anything right now?
Well, you're not charged with it right now, but I'm telling you, things are not going good.
That's fine. I've given you all the explanations, I've told you everything, and, you know, like I said, if we're done here, I mean, I have a lot of stuff to do today.
There isn't enough to charge Alex Bennett just yet, but before he leaves, Bennett offers up a character witness.
Bennett indicates that his friend, Grant Lewis, could verify that he wouldn't have done this thing.
Grant Lewis, a longtime friend and associate of Alex Bennett's. Turns out 9 years before, 3 years after Heidi's murder, Bennett and Lewis were arrested for calling in a phony bomb scare at a Colorado courthouse. The motive for their bizarre plot? Pin it on the guy Bennett was living with, so they can steal his car when he goes away to prison.
Not a very good idea.
No, not at all.
With that, Childs and Meyer are anxious to talk to Grant Lewis.
As luck would have it, he had an open warrant on him for some petty offense, but it was enough to at least get him in.
But in the interview, Lewis is hard to pin down. He's playing a mad game of cat and mouse. Detective Childs is having none of it.
Nothing was satisfying Gary.
No, he wanted to keep going, and he did. And he pressed on until finally Grant Lewis said that, yeah, he does recall Alex going to Baltimore. And ultimately, when Alex got home,
we were drinking down by the bridge, and he said, I heard someone bad. And I told her no, and I said, I don't want to know. And he said, I think someone's dead. And then he said, I knifed someone.
With that revelation from Grant Lewis, his friend Alex Bennett is eventually arrested for Heidi Bernadzikowski's murder and extradited to Baltimore.
Were you surprised by that?
Yes, like what's in Colorado? Heidi never been there as far as I know. And then eventually that turned into somebody being arrested and charged. The guy wouldn't open his mouth though.
2 years later, Bennett's buddy Grant Lewis, the star witness for the prosecution, is in town, ready to testify against him.
so Gary and I picked Grant Lewis up from the hotel room. We're sitting having breakfast, and I hear Gary's phone, and he looks over at me and says,
Coming up, a stunning announcement.
His attorneys came out and said, he'll tell you everything.
And you wouldn't believe who he's about to point the finger at.
What gave him a change of heart?
It was a come to Jesus moment in a conversation he had with his mother the night before trial started. She told us later on that she talked to him and said, if you did this, you have to confess. God will forgive you. It was a come to Jesus moment.